Well, here's what I like: Drac, Feynman, Maxwell. What do you got? Feynman, Brackett. Okay, let's actually take a look at this for a moment. I'm loving this one, especially from a forward perspective, like I'm sitting at the sun specifically, because that would be an orbital. Following with Mercury, Venus, Earth, generally giving inside of this set from that perspective, because then I would need to be a fixed body M1 to M2 from this given horizon relative to accelerating horizon, which is accelerating to positions in that fractal banking thing that you all do. Um, so when you get to this is not actually correct, but it's generally correct. Now I could see a gravity well here, but let's say we change perspectives. No, don't do that. Well, all right, well, just on and off in general, but when looking at it from certain perspectives here, I know I like the white background, helps me. Um, Again, we're kind of looking at this binarily. Is it one more? It might be. Anyways, uh, we could also stop it there, relatively speaking. Now, again, from a moving body, there would be a magnetic actual system inside here because it's an EM field of. When you generalize this to be the M1, we're going to say, let's use this mechanic. Let's use this perspective and this mechanic that does this specific thing. Otherwise, it's just a ball wave. We're not assuming, and any ball wave is going to have gravity, M1 and M2, right? Supersymmetry. On the Penrose here, a dimensional analysis of substellar objects inside the substellar objects, it's just this massively distorted, that the gravity symmetry here to whatever grid position you connect this, you could draw this out by hand. You could assume that, okay, so our perspective drawing here is to the corner of that pillar you're chiseling in here to the Kiss of Death statue or Mary or whoever you're doing there. You want to chisel in Mount Rushmore. This is how you'd have to go about doing it. At any rate, at any rate, the magnetic lines would actually determine physics, not necessarily this. This is where it gets away from that, but allows it to be a cleaner state where I can generalize it better, where field theory is correct in field charge or whatever you're doing, but not also correct. I mean, it's not also correct in right ways against everything that. From this perspective, let's say we change the axiom because we actually keyed it with some code, right? And I know M1 is M2, and this is always going to go right hand rule this way because everything else in the universe does gravity. But it doesn't. And that means specifically geometry is going to stay. What axiom I pick, because zenith high, zenith low, P1, P2, however you're setting up the X and Y's on this thing to really specifically make whatever program you're talking about, right? I mean, because eventually it's like the whole thing is that void, and what I'm looking at is some bandwidths. What I'm looking at is some way to link into that general form. So again, let's change the magnetism. Let's say the symmetry to the sun is over here. Well, what we'd find is some magnetic storms, some magnetic waves that actually deal with the real physics of that. But that's a little bit too comprehensive. We're going to have another state of this. And if you've been following my timeline on here, you'll understand some M1 FX kind of correlates to just in a regular vacuum, potential vacuum, at any phase or state of that system, it's as flat as it could be. No particles, no speed line, nothing really determined other than I was from Earth at one point in time. Let's cheat the equation a little bit here. Now, as stuff starts to roll in, I dictate 9.8 meters per second. There she is. Oh, she's beautiful, 9.8 meters per second. Look at you go. And in terms of the way that causal squared, the mass of information for it to do this has to be EMC or MC, MC, M over C, and I think there's some other jargon in there which explains the XY or the symmetry of rotational forward. How do you have CT paradox on a ball? Well, zero. You'd say any state that you could say to its gravitational points, if at that scale, but in a very small way, weakly attracted, there's Earth, and you jump on it, you're going to come back down. You individually have your mass. You're standing in the box with a flashlight that's relatively banging around inside here, given what it is. But the door's open, so therefore it actually loses weight. But it's a flashlight, and you're standing on a scale, and your heart's beating, and everything else in the wave functions, the duality, the gravity, the ways. Giddy up. Catch you on the next one.